Hello everybody, this is the Ghoulish Gamer here, bringing you another Pokemon singles competitive video for Pokemon Champions. So in today's video, my goal is to kind of highlight what I think has really been viable and very prevalent in the metagame so far. Now, we don't necessarily have widely available usage stats, so this is kind of more of like my anecdotal experience. However, I will say that if you have an answer to be able to deal with these specific Pokemon, I think you'll have a pretty good time climbing up and even in your way through the earlier ranks of Master Ball tier. So I think it's really important to finally make this video. I've been waiting to kind of get a really good feel for the metagame here. Sorry if there's some background noise too. My cat is being pretty naughty right now. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and hop into things here because I know this is going to be a pretty long one. I'll try to be really as efficient as I can. So how I want to do this here, I do want to talk about some of the mega Pokemon just because they are so prevalent right now in a mega only format. But I'm only going to talk about 5 main ones, some specific counters to them that are not mega evolutions too, to hopefully make your team building a little bit easier. And then also 2 honorable mentions. And then for every other big metagame threat, I'm only going to talk about like one example to counter that, just to kind of give you an idea of some potential ways to handle that if you're having a really hard time. So the first one that's been running around everywhere, especially since I got into Master Ball tier, is been Mega Delphox, and I think this makes sense. So if you look at the format and a lot of the Pokemon we're going to be talking about today, they are all Steel types. There are so many good Steel types in the format, so just having a good answer to those Steel types, and also just having a strong special attacker too in a metagame that's so physically defensive and lacking on a lot of special defensive walls makes a lot of sense. Now, when I did my Mega Evolutions video, I had talked about Mega Delphox potentially not being very good, but that would only be in the context of having those base 135 stat non-mega Pokemon, things like Ching Pao and Fluttermane, for example. Right now, we don't have to contend with those Pokemon, so I think that 134 speed stat is plenty fast to have you outspeed a lot of key threats. Now, you're still slower than things like Mega Lopunny and Mega Manectric, but I don't really think that matters too much in this instance, especially since you are have that Psychic typing too to help have good resist into a lot of those matchups. And you're fairly specially bulky as well, too, against special attackers. So I've been seeing mostly some variant of like a Nasty Plot or Calm Mind set, which also makes sense. You want to boost that damage output even a little bit with a Calm Mind is enough to go ahead and start sweeping and running away with the game. It does have access to Encore, which is kind of annoying to deal with if it's dealing with like some sort of anti-wall or anti-tank setup. And it also has, I've been seeing a lot of Substitute too. I think if I was going to run this personally, I would run like Nasty Plot Substitute so I can sub against a more utility wall Pokemon, someone that's trying to do some sort of status, get up a free wall. Now I can Nasty Plot. Now if they try to switch out to, I have that extra level of protection against a stronger attacker, and I can just start running away with the game. It's also really threatening too because you have that stab Psyshock, so they can hit you both, especially for your weakness if you have a much more physically defensive Pokemon, or if you do bring one of your special walls to counter this, then it can still hit you with stab Psyshocks and do tons of damage. It's also just got like really good move coverage in general too. You've got Dazzling Gleam, Focus Blast, which has been really key to have like fighting type coverage, especially special fighting type coverage right now. Hex can even be decent. Overheat for more damage output. Scorching Sands. So you just have Stored Power too. Shadow Ball. I think you've got at least Grass Knot. Yep. So just ridiculous amounts of coverage, and it just makes this Pokemon really difficult to deal with overall. Now to counter it, I'm not saying you should go out and use Greninja. I'm just kind of using this as an example. I really like the priority water type attackers, and I did this as an example mostly just because Greninja is still one of the faster Pokemon in the game. You can do something like Sword Stance. You have priority on the Water Shuriken, so that if they do set up something like a substitute, now you can break the sub with one hit and then still potentially just knock it out. That Mega Delphox is not very physically defensive. Here you only have 75 in the hit points, 72 in the defense. So if you wanted like a dedicated counter, you could definitely do this. And then I think Greninja is still a good Sword Stance sweeper. You get boosted too in the torrent if you proc the Focus Sash or low on health too. So I think that this can be a decent option. And then you've just got some really decent coverage moves too. Another thing is it's really nice to have poison coverage right now, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. So definitely, if you have the extra space in your team, you're having a hard time dealing with it, that can be an option. And then I just really like Primarina and Azumarill. Water Fairy typing is just such a good typing in the game in general. And so being able to deal with that is really nice. Now, the thing I like about Primarina here in this example is you are just so naturally specially defensive. 80 on the hit points is respectable, and then 116 is very high on the special defense. So even with their massive special attack stat, you're going to be doing some decent damage. Now, the downside is Delphox, Mega Delphox is very specially defensive. So you're not going to necessarily get the one-hit knockout like you might be hoping for. But potentially with the right kind of investment, maybe you go more defensive than just going max hit points. You can do some decent damage here. And then the really nice thing too is if you're going up against substitute Delphox, the Sparkling Aura is a sound-based move, so it is going to just bypass right through the substitute there, which is the key thing with this. You also get Torrent Boost too if you get yourself in a position. Just get a little bit extra damage too on your water type moves, which is very, very nice. And then you have Aqua Jet too to pick anything off if you should need it. And then the thing I like about Palafin here is, again, just having that priority water type attacking, hitting on the physical side is going to do a ton of damage here. You're also fairly naturally bulky, not so much on the special defensive side, but 187 is not horrible. If they end up going for something like a substitute, you have Encore as an option if you're already in the game, which can be pretty decent because Encore actually bypasses substitute, and then you can lock them into that, and then you kind of just pick them down from there, which is very, very nice. So that can be another decent option as well. It is a pretty difficult Pokemon to deal with. It is pretty threatening just because we don't have like massive special defense walls in the game yet. If you wanted to use something like, I've been using Chandelure too, just with its Infiltrator ability, you can bypass the substitute, and then you've got a really good typing matchup, and you've got some natural bulk too to be able to deal with something like the Mega Delphox. But overall, very, very threatening Pokemon here. I'm not going to spend as much time with some of these other ones. That one I just wanted to really delve deep into my thoughts on it because it is such a big threat here. Mega Lopunny, very straightforward linear Pokemon. Now this Pokemon is excellent because this combination of Scrappy and then that dual normal and fighting stab offensive coverage is really, really good. Even though it doesn't have access to return, close combat on this thing's been really good. I've been liking Play Rough. It's also got Triple Axle, which is one of the best moves in the game right now because you can take down things like Dragonite in one turn and Garchomp. I've also seen a lot been running the U-turn 2 to pivot. You do have setup options too with the Mega Lopunny, so it can get some more damage going as well. These are by no means the only moves that you could see it running. But yeah, just overall a pretty big threat here. But really, you just need some sort of decent physical wall to be able to handle this guy. So I would recommend... Sorry, that is the wrong list here. Toxapex right now is honestly, in my opinion, by far the best tank in the game. And just that combination of your solid typing, just really good mixed defenses, the regenerator ability to be able to swap in, eat a hit, and then when you're swapping out, you're getting that health back too, is so nice. Now, you don't have a lot in terms of offensive pressure here. I've been running it mostly as a Toxic Staller. If you're going up against matchups where you're not able to Toxic, whether they have some sort of immunity to it or they're trying to taunt you or something like that, you also have access to Infestation too. However, I do like Haze just because then you can stop a Pokemon if they're trying to set up on you, something like an Espathra too, trying to snowball away and get you like powerful stored powers. So just really, really solid option here, and that's why I'm going to talk about Toxapex first. In terms of your physical defense walls, I also think that Corviknight, which is a Pokemon we're seeing everywhere, is one of your best options. And it's just your ability to go into Iron Defense and then start hitting from powerful body presses. You're going to heal off most of that health anyway. You have Pressure too, which is really nice since a lot of the moves have been decreased in Power Points, so you can kind of Power Point stall out of Pokemon. Or alternatively, Mirror Armor has been used against me too, and that can be really, really annoying to deal with as well too. If they use something like a Mystical Fire on you, then you have the potential to drop in their special attack and then just getting more defensive as a result of that. So really, really good option there. And then the last option I will talk about here, I only did two, I think. Yeah, only two. Not really necessary to go too much into a deep dive here. I also think that in terms of a counter to... Oh, here we go. The Scizor as well has been my favorite option. So Scizor is really nice with Technician boosted Bullet Punches because there are a lot of Fairy types in the game, and the Fairy types tend to be more specially defensive. So it's already a really solid Pokemon. At max hit points too, I kind of like the idea of running the Oka Berry since we're so limited with good items in the game. to where it gives you the potential to survive a super effective fire type attack. And then you can kind of just run away from the game from there. The nice thing about Scizor is because you're typing, you can swap in while they're trying to go for a fake out and go into their Mega Evolution, eat the hit super well, and then you can immediately go into pressure with someone like a close combat. They might try to close combat you, disrespecting your power, or you can just straight away set up a sword stance. If they try to U-turn out, you're going to take the hit really well. So I actually really like Scizor as well to deal with the Mega Lopunny here. The next mega threat that I've been seeing a lot everywhere is Mega Greninja, and I think this really just boils down to its speed stat. I talked about how once there's going to be more base 150 and 151 Mega Evolution speed stats in the game, that's not really going to feel like that good of a number to hit. You're the same as Dragapult at 142. But in a metagame that's a little bit slower right now, where we don't have quite as many of those fast Pokemon, absolutely 142 in the speed, with 125 on the attack and 133 on the special attack is super solid. This guy can be a mixed attacker if it needs to hit for both your weaknesses here, depending on the matchup. It has access to Sword Stance, and because it maintains the Protean ability, you can actually like double Protean. So before it Mega Evolves, it can attack once, get that stab, super effective damage for coverage, and then it can Mega Evolve, change its typing again, and then get more stab. So that's how I've been seeing a lot of people run this guy as well. You still have access to things like Spike to get rid of that that electric weakness if they try to come on you with electric attack. Just really decent coverage overall. So this Pokemon is a big threat. Again, like I said, probably you're going to see some variant of like Sword Stance set up to or some sort of mixed attacker. So you have to definitely respect it for the speed that it brings to the game. In order to counter this, my first suggestion would be using something like an Archaludon, mostly just because you have a really solid typing and you have good enough base stats that even with the special defense vulnerability there against something like a Greninja, you handle yourself pretty well. Most of its super effective options to be able to handle you is going to be like a physical fighting type attack, like a low kick. So you're much more physically defensive. And then I actually like the idea, so your speed stat is high enough at 85 that if you go max speed and then you go for Thunder Wave right away, the idea is you take a hit from a Greninja here, Thunder Wave them, now you're going to outspeed. You can rest off that damage, potentially get a paralysis too, so you get free hit back. And then now that they're slower too, they're just much easier to deal with. The potential too is if they are a physical attacker, if they have some sort of super effective coverage against you, even though you've got a really good typing, you also have that stamina ability, so you're going to be boosting your defenses, and you're just going to be even harder and harder to deal with as the game goes along. So that's a reason why I like this. This is also good in a 3v3 format too, just because you get some scouting. If you get that Stealth Rocks down, that's really threatening to other key threats in the game like Dragonite and Volcarona, for example. So just kind of to see their whole team, get some scouting, and then have that really decent matchup, I'll be able to cripple their high speed tier Pokemon. Specifically, the Mega Greninja is going to be really nice here. And you're going to see this a lot in this video. I'm sorry to be redundant, but again, Toxapex is just positioned so well in the current metagame. If you're not running a Toxapex and you're having a hard time with any of these threats, I highly recommend running some variant of Toxapex. In this example, I'm running it as more of a special defense wall here. And we could actually go for like a plus special defense nature as well, just to get a little bit more usage out of it, to where even if they are a physical Greninja, you're so good on both your defenses here that you're going to be able to come in, switch on them super easily, eat those hits, hopefully drop down to Toxic, or maybe even trap them with an Infestation, and just whittle them down, stay healthy, protect stall, recover off that damage that you're taking, and just run away with the game from there. So overall, super nice option. And then I did want to talk about Meowscarada. Meowscarada is another Pokemon you're going to see a lot in this video because it is also just one of the best Pokemon in the game, and it's positioned so well as a good anti-meta threat overall because you have massive coverage, and with the limited item move pool in the game, it's one of the best Focus Sash users too. I really like it. Takes good advantage of it with the stab overgrow, and then that boosted flower trick damage is incredible. Always getting those critical hits too, to where even if they're trying to set up on you and get some defense boosts, you're just gonna ignore that with those critical hits anyway. And then the nice thing about Meowscarada into the Greninja matchup is if you already have Meowscarada in the game, if you're expecting them to lead Greninja, it still takes a turn for the Mega to gain their full speed set. And then base Greninja is actually base 121 or 122 speed. I'm blanking here. I think it's 121. So you are naturally faster than them, and you can just hit them for a flower trick immediately. They're not going to be able to take you out. And then if you have to pick them off with something like a sucker punch, as long as they're not using priority, you can do so. But again, if they have that Mega Stone, flower tricks is going to knock them out. Period. You get the outspeed. It's really, really nice matchup. I did encounter a few bugs to where the speed tiering was not working properly for the Mega Evolution Pokemon. That should be fixed, and from everything I've read, they didn't make any like major change to the way speed tiering works for Mega Evolution Pokemon. So again, just Meowscarada is such a good Pokemon right now, positioned against most of the meta in the general, and it can be a nice way to deal with the Mega Greninjas too if you're having a hard time dealing with that. The next Pokemon I want to talk about here is Mega Charizard X, and this is not particularly a hard Pokemon to deal with. It's just very, very respectable. It's one of the best Dragon Dance uses in the game right now, especially since we don't have access to Terra. I think you have to respect it for a little bit higher speed stat than something like what a Dragonite's going to be able to do, and then just that Tough Claws boost too is going to be really nice. Now this does a couple of really cool things. I don't know if you get access to the Trailblaze. I don't think you do. But I've been seeing either some variant of like Dragon Dance or Swords Dance with Flame Charge too to get their speed going. The nice thing is Outrage is really their best dragon move unless they go for something like a Dragon Claw. Now, if they go for Swords Dance, Dragon Claw is going to be doing enough damage, then they're not going to have to lock themselves in. If they are Dragon Dance and they want the damage output that's necessary to find those 1-hit KOs, they're going to have to commit to an Outrage. So that's where having like a Fairy type on your team is going to be really good. But again, that's just really, really solid offensive coverage. It gets snowballing super fast, where if you don't have an answer to it, it can be really, really difficult to deal with. And you guessed it. Again, I'm going to recommend Toxapex as a perfect counter for it, especially physically defensive Toxapex is my favorite way to go. You're just going to be able to switch into anything that it has. You have Haze to be able to remove any of their status effects, and you drop a Toxic down on them, and you're just going to be able to stall them out until they eventually get knocked out. You can always switch out and get your Regenerator health back, so just a super, super good way of dealing with this guy. I also have Hippowdon down. Hippowdon's another one of the really popular physical defense walls in the game. And the thing about Hippowdon is you don't have major weaknesses into a lot of the coverage moves that you're going to be seeing run on the Charizard, to where if you go max hit point, max defense, you're going to really be able to pressure it. And then the other thing I like about Hippowdon is a lot of times you'll see some sort of like Yawn or Whirlwind coverage, and then you might have the Stealth Rocks too, to where you can kind of just get some intel, force them to switch out, see what their team is, and then also get some chip damage. If you can get a Stealth Rocks down before the Charizard even comes into play, now you have a ton of pressure on them. You're going to be doing 50% of their health from the get-go, to where now you can just come in with like a Priority Mon and just pick them off from there. Using something like a powerful Sucker Punch, for example, should be enough damage to deal with the Charizard from that range. So really, really solid option there. And then Archaludon, such a versatile Pokemon to use, but in this situation, I'm actually suggesting using Archaludon in terms of it being used on a rain team, which I think is one of the more threatening options to have in the game right now. I don't really want to talk too much about like specialized team builds like weather effects, but I think that rain is just so powerful right now with things like Basket Legion, Archaludon. You have both Pelipper and Politoed to set the rain right now, that there's just so many key threats to take advantage of that it's a really, really solid option too. And then you can start firing away. The nice thing I like about Archaludon in this context is with that speed stat, if they're trying to set up on you, which they might think that they have the time to set up on you, if you're running Choice Scarf, you can come in and just Draco Meteor them and just take them down in one turn. So that's kind of why I'm showing this as an example. Obviously, if they're Dragon Dancing, they're going to be able to snowball and start to outspeed you. But you also have the Sturdy ability too. I'd recommend running Sturdy on some sort of set like this too. And the idea with this is to run it on a rain team, but you have that as a contingency to be able to deal with the Charizard if need be. And you're not already running like a major physical defense wall. So the next Pokemon I want to talk about is Mega Venusaur, which is a very easy Pokemon to deal with, but if you don't have an answer on your team to it, it can just be impossible to take down. That Thick Fat ability to get rid of your fire and ice weaknesses effectively on a Pokemon that's already so defensive, those massive, massive defenses, is just really annoying to deal with. They're going to see a lot of different variants of Venusaur. You might even see something trying to set up with like Swords Dance, for example, or Growth. But I think the most common one you're going to see is some sort of like Seed Staller. It might run Toxic and just kind of protect. It might run Synthesis. It's just going to be super bulky, kind of like your Toxapex, and just kind of whittle you down until you can't do anything to deal with it. Again, there's a lot of really easy counters to be able to deal with this guy. The first one I'm going to suggest is just any kind of Magic Bounce Pokemon, to where if they try to throw a Toxic down on you or Leech Seed, you're just going to throw that right back. They can't do anything to you. And since they're relying so much on that, it gives you the opportunity to set up and then start running away with the game. Espeon's also kind of nice too, because you can Baton Pass potentially if you want to set up with like Calm Mind. You also just have a good type advantage into the Mega Venusaur. Espathra is probably the number one I would recommend, to where you just start boosting with your speed right away. You can start threatening with Lumina Crash. And the nice thing is I really like Substitute on this Espathra. You set up a Substitute. Now they can't set up a Leech Seed on you. They can't use Toxic on you. You have a free Substitute to play around with, to where you can start boosting your damage or potentially Baton Pass out if need be and give that to another one of your special attackers too. Or even just a Pokemon that wants that special defense boost, honestly. So, such a huge threat. This Pokemon just starts snowballing right away, and definitely one I wanted to talk about. And then I put Scoville in here too, just because with the Moody ability, you're going to be able to start snowballing really fast and take advantage of it. So the thing I like about Scovillin is a lot of Scovillins like to run Substitute anyway. You can potentially swap in if you're expecting a Leech Seed. And then if you get enough stat boosts and stuff like that, you're just going to be able to sweep the game, even without having to run some sort of Mega Evolution. And I think that people are not going to bat an eye seeing the Scovillin, since Mega Scovillin has been running around so often. So it's just a nice little contingency if you want, and you have the space for it in your team as well here. Again, lots of good options. Anything that's going to be able to run Substitute or Encore should be able to deal with the Mega Venusaur decently well, but having some nice hard counters is also very, very handy. And then just two honorable mentions for Mega Evolution Pokemon that I wanted to talk about here. Mega Scovillin is a Pokemon that's been pretty threatening. You see a set similar to the one I was just talking about. A lot of times being run, they try to get some Moody boosts. And then when they come into encounter with like a physical attacker, they will then Mega Evolve, get that Spicy Spray, get a guaranteed burn down, and then you're just really difficult to deal with from there. You've got massive special attack stat too, to where if you got Moody boosted, you can just take a lot of Pokemon down with your flamethrowers, and then also just keep stalling and get a lot of that health back too with your Leech Seed. So kind of an annoying Pokemon to deal with. And then also I'll talk about Mega Meganium too. Not like a broken Pokemon by any stretch of the imagination, but, and I would recommend if you're running this, going max speed still to speed tie with other base 80 speed tier Pokemon. But that Mega Soul ability is just so threatening, to where it can just fire off really powerful solar beams. You have fire type weather balls. You have massive synthesis to be able to heal. Just really good overall coverage that you have to respect it for what it is. And it is such a defensive Pokemon too. Having some sort of answer to those guys is going to be really, really important. Now, in terms of dealing with the Scovillin, really any kind of fire type Pokemon is going to be ideal, just because that way they cannot burn you. If you have a fire type Pokemon that can ignore Leech Seed too, so they can't stall you wet that way, it's even better. And you can definitely run like Substitute on Skeledirge if you want. I have Skeledirge here as an example, just because with the Torch on, it's a sound based move. You can start boosting yourself. You're going to ignore their Moody boost, and then you'll bypass their Substitute in this case. So really, really solid, even though you probably wouldn't run the Substitute on it, although I have seen it before in Skeledirge. Really, really decent option to deal with the Scovillin. And then I also have Chandelure too as a potential option here, where you would want to run Substitutes. You can Substitute so they can't Leech Seed you, start setting up Calm Mind, and then again, you have that Infiltrator ability to where you can bypass their Substitute yourself, and hopefully they'll have already Mega Evolved at that point, and at which point you can just kind of set up as much as you need to and run away from the game from there. So really, really good options. In terms of Mega Meganium, what I would recommend is just having some sort of poison coverage on your team. We had talked about Greninja already being decent with the Gunk Shot. I would want any Pokemon with like higher than a base 80 speed tier that's max speed invested with a really powerful poison move. So Meganium's 4 times weak to poison. I really like the idea of Glamora because you get a lot of good usage out of it, and it's really good, like well positioned to a lot of other Pokemon in the game. But again, any kind of Pokemon with poison type coverage, you can run like a poison jab on a Garchomp, for example, or Hawlucha. There's a lot of options, but just having some sort of poison coverage to be able to respect the Mega Meganium matchup is really, really important. Now moving on to the non-mega Pokemon that I think are major threats in the game. So the first one I've been seeing a lot is Aegislash, which is a Pokemon we have not really had to deal with in a long time. And Aegislash is just so threatening because its stats are through the roof. When it's in its defensive stance change mode, you just have those massive defenses, and they can kind of Keen Shield, turn into that defensive form, eat a hit with your slow speed, then go for a powerful attack move, and then kind of Keen Shield and repeat that cycle over and over again. So if you don't have a good matchup with it, it can be really annoying to deal with. I've been adding Knockoff as a coverage move where I can fit it into on my team just as a way to deal with this Pokemon a little bit better, since a lot of times you're going to see it being run with the leftovers. Since it's going to be using Keen Shield anyway, it's just going to get a little bit more recovery back, so be able to knock that off for super effective damage, and then preventing them from being able to get that passive recovery too from the leftovers is really nice. But all I can really recommend is some sort of anti-setup. I would recommend using Encore personally, because the nice thing with Encore is Keen Shield. It bypasses the Keen Shield, and Aegislash is a fairly slow Pokemon. I have Primarina as an example, just because you're not in early position very well into the Aegislash, but being speed tied with it, if you run a little bit of speed creep to confidently outspeed the Aegislash, and then you Encore them the turn after they go for a Keen Shield, that can be super threatening. So just a really nice way to deal with it. There's so many good Pokemon in the game that have Encore. On the current team that I'm going to be playing, that I'll show you guys pretty soon here, I have Encore on my Mega Lopunny just as a way to answer and respond to the Aegislash. So just being mindful of how threatening this Pokemon is and having some sort of niche tech in your thing. You don't necessarily need a dedicated Pokemon to be able to handle it, but just be able to play around that Keen Shield is going to be really important. Now, we talked about Archaladon already a couple times, and the tricky thing with Archaladon is it's just such a versatile Pokemon. It's got such a high base stat total already with a 600 base stat total. It's effectively a pseudo-legendary Pokemon. You've got incredible typing, too, with that Dragon Steel typing, and 2 great abilities. There's just so many things this Pokemon can do. It's got a good speed stat. It's got really decent bulk. Massive special attack stat. You have to respect this, and it's hard to know what you're going to be encountering. Now, you might be able to predict if you see something like a Pelipper on their team, okay, that's probably like a rain supported one. It probably has the Electroshot coverage. Other times, it's not going to be as easy to tell. I will oftentimes see some sort of variant too, that's trying to we've already given an example of this where they try to get Stealth Rocks down, and then they're just trying to get some intel on your team and get some chip damage away using something like a Dragon Tail or a Roar to be able to see what your Pokemon are. They can get Stealth Rocks down. In this example here too, since there is limited items in the game, I've been seeing Whiter run with a Draco Meteor just as a way to deal with those dragon types, and then be able to not be locked in as a major vulnerability to be able to have some good coverage options. I'm just kind of highlighting what it can do here. So Thunderbolt's a nice option that it has on it still that I've been seeing run to deal with something like Corviknight and some of those water type Pokemon that are really annoying in the game. Steel Beam, I think you have to respect it for what it is, because it is such a high base power stab steel type option to where, yes, it's probably going to finish them off, but with that decent speed stat that you see on the Archaladon, that's enough to just find that 1-hit KO a lot of times, especially if they already have some chip. So just really annoying things to be able to encounter there. And then again, under rain too, we'll see this a lot of times. I saw this moveset the other day. With the sturdy ability, it just gives you a little bit extra longevity. Under rain, Electroshot is a base 130 special attack move with 100% accuracy that boosts your special attack by 1 stage, and then it fires off immediately under rain. So it's kind of like Solar Beam, where if sun's up, Solar Beam's always hitting. Same thing with Electroshot under rain. It doesn't need that extra turn to charge up. It just starts boosting your special attack and doing damage. It can be super threatening. And then also, obviously, we have the Draco Meteor, Steel Beam. They've got a lot of really good coverage options on the special side. Flash Cannon, things like that. The one big thing to note with Archaladon is it does not have access to Body Press as of right now, which I think is actually a huge improvement to the overall health of the metagame. When this thing had the combination of stamina, to where every time it's taking a damage, you're boosting its physical defense too, it's becoming even more difficult to deal with. And then it gets a really powerful fighting type coverage move that was just ridiculous. It was just too hard to deal with. So what I would recommend running is Excadrill. And the nice thing about Excadrill for a couple things here, you at max speed naturally outspeed an Archaludon as long as it's not using Choice Scarf. Because it doesn't have that body press anymore, it doesn't have a good super effective coverage move to be able to deal with the Excadrill very well. You can also switch into something like an Electro Shot even on a rain team and just absorb that electric attack so that they're not getting boosted that way. But the other really cool thing about Excadrill is you are Mold Breaker. So that actually ignores the sturdy ability too. You can do a super effective Earthquake, and if you have enough damage output to be able to find the 1-hit knockout, you're just going to be able to knock out through the sturdy. They don't get that extra longevity there. It can be really, really handy. Also, if you're being silly, you have the Horn Drill. I like the Horn Drill on here just as a way to deal with some of those really physically defensive walls. Things like a Toxapex that might be able to set up on you. For example, Toxapex still has Stockpile to be able to boost its defenses, and even an Earthquake might not be enough to take it out. Horn Drill can also take out threats like Corviknight. In terms of the item here, I have Shuka Berry just because there's been a lot of strong ground types like Garchomp in the game. I've actually been running the Chople Berry more just to deal with like body presses and that fight type coverage too, with Mega Lopunny being so prevalent in the game. So, but definitely a super, super good Pokemon here. I also like it too with the Rapid Spin because you can clear off those hazards if need be. And then that's a nice way to deal with some other threats too. So you get the speed boost off the Rapid Spin. Now you can outspeed things like a Dragon Dance boosted Dragonite and then start going for Rock Slides to be able to take it out. So there are definitely some matchups too where having the Rapid Spin's really, really nice as well on your team. Even if you're just using it to break someone's sash and then also get that speed boost. The next big threat that I've been seeing, and we talked about this a little bit already, is Corviknight. It's just such a good physical defense wall in the game, and it's positioned so well into a lot of the strong physical attackers, especially some of the Mega Evolutions, that you have to respect it for what it is. It can start boosting with Iron defenses and then just get hit off massive, massive body presses. Now, I personally like Power Trip on the Corviknight if I'm running this myself here. Power Trip. Which is like a dark type move that the more stats you increase, like let's say we get 6 iron defenses up, it's kind of like sword power, it's going to do more damage. I have been seeing a lot of like dual wing beats on Brave Bird and Iron Head too, just to have that steel coverage. So I just kind of want to highlight what I've been seeing here. But if you don't have a strong special attacking fire type or electric track, it can be really difficult to deal with this Pokemon. So I have Rotom Heat as an example. You've probably seen this guy being run around quite a bit on the singles ladder. Just some nice overall options there. You can Will-O-Wisp too, so that those body presses won't be doing quite as much damage, but then you have some really nice coverage moves too to be able to deal with it here. Again, any kind of strong special attacking fire type or electric type attacker will be a solid way to deal with the Corviknight. So moving on here, Glimmora is another Pokemon that I've been seeing, and it's kind of an annoying Pokemon to deal with because, again, it's a really good Focus Sash user. With that Toxic Debris ability, it's going to get off some passive Toxic Spikes, which would be really, really annoying to deal with. And with the Focus Sash, that potentially allows it to get 2 layers of Toxic Spikes down. And there are not a lot of good Poison-type Pokemon in the game where you can switch in with your Poison-type Pokemon, absorb those Toxic Spikes, and get them off the field. To where if you're not running Steel-type Pokemon, you're not running Pokemon that don't care about that already, that can be a really annoying way to just get a lot more value out of your Glimmora. I personally, you'll see sometimes they run with Stealth Rock too, so you get Stealth Rocks. The idea is like they hit you once, Toxic Debris, they just set up Stealth Rocks, they hit you again to knock you out, another Toxic Debris. Now you have 2 layers of Toxic Spikes and the Stealth Rocks down. I personally think that it's better just as like a special attacker. You go max special, max speed, max special attack. You have those really powerful stab options here to be able to deal with a lot of key threats in the game. Power Gem's really good too against things like Dragonite and other flying type Pokemon. You've got some really good coverage moves overall. You have the Energy Ball, Earth Power, Flash Cannon. So you're not locked into just those moves per se. And this Pokemon is just such a huge, huge, huge threat. It also does have Corrosion too, which has been kind of annoying. However, I think Slazzle is also in the game, and that's a better Corrosion user. So I'd recommend just using the Toxic Debris. But massive, massive threat overall. The best way to deal with this guy is honestly just going to be dealing with it with special attackers. I have Espeon again as an example here, just to where if they try to throw down a Stealth Rocks, or if you're predicting that coming down, you can swap in. You're going to bounce that back at them. Then you have the potential to set up like a Calm Mind, take him down with a Psychic. You can always baton pass out that Calm Mind if you get a good opportunity. I wouldn't necessarily Calm Mind into the Glimmora, even though it's more of a special attacker, just because it does enough damage. Well, you could. You can kind of play around with the stats on this a little bit, but this is just like one example too. Because Glimmora is a special attacker, you can bounce back everything at them too. And then you're going to be more specially defensive too. So that one wouldn't be all bad either. Definitely Espeon's a good choice to have in the back of your mind if you're having a really hard time with Glimmora. I'm going to kind of group these in together here. We've been seeing a lot of Dragonite and Garchomp in the game, and the key weakness is that they're both four times weak to ice types. And in a metagame where they're not able to Terastallize and get rid of that weakness, they're very, very vulnerable on that weakness as well. Now, Dragonite is one of the best Dragon Dance users in the game. I've been using it quite a bit. I've had some easy sweeps with this guy. It does have access to extreme speed. A lot of times you're seeing it run without Rage 2, so a major vulnerability there. If you're running a Fairy type, it's a good way to take advantage of them. But Garchomp too, lost Scarf Chomp, some Focus Sash, some Yachi Berry with like Sword Stance, max hit point, max speed. Just a lot of good options that the Garchomps have been running too. Just very, very threatening pseudo legendary Pokemon with a massive base stat total and some really powerful coverage options. So again, I talked about their vulnerability to ice types. My favorite answer has been Meowscarada with the triple axle. The thing with the triple axle, the Meowscarada, that Focus Sash just gives you a little bit extra longevity. And then the triple axle, yes, it does have the 90% accuracy, so you have to hit 90% accuracy triple axles 3 times in a row. But the nice thing is, against like the Dragonite, for example, you break that multi-scale, now your next 2 triple axles are doing full damage, and you're going to find that 1-hit KO every time. Against the Garchomp, too, if they're running Focus Sash, you're going to be able to break through the Focus Sash super easily and then be able to deal with it from there. Now, yes, it does have Ruskin, so you're going to be taking 3 hits of Ruskin damage, but that's okay, too. I'm not sure what the interaction is with Yachi Berry. I haven't encountered that yet using Triple Axle, so I don't know if the Yachi Berry prevents a super effective Ice-type hit for that first hit, and then you still get the full damage for those next 2 hits, or if Yachi Berry helps protect you for that entire turn of damage. So that is something to take into consideration here. But again, Meowscarada, such a good Pokemon in the game right now. Definitely would highly recommend running it. Alternatively, I have Alolan Ninetales here as an example, and there's a couple cool things about Alolan Ninetales again in these matchups. So you're naturally faster than both Garchomp and Dragonite without them running the Choice Scarf here. And with the Snow Warning, setting up the Snow Warning, you get a natural boost to your physical defense, too, just as being an Ice type. So even though you're not a very physically defensive Pokemon, that is a nice little bump. So if you can get the outspeed, you can set up Aurora Veil and then just start pressuring with those full accuracy Blizzards and do a ton of pressure there. Very, very nice. Really, really good support Pokemon, too. It never hurts to have Aurora Veil up. Now, Light Clay is not in the game, so you're only going to have 5 turns of Aurora Veil. Even still, having the Aurora Veil on your team, having that nice coverage, Alolan Ninetales is an excellent Pokemon that I have not been seeing a lot of people run, and would highly recommend running it if you're having a hard time dealing with both the Garchomp and Dragonite collectively, and need a good coverage attacker. We had talked about this a little bit too earlier, that the Fairy Water type Pokemon are just so powerful, both Azumarill and Primarina. And these are very different Pokemon, but what I've been seeing a lot is, since Choice Band is not in the game, we've seen a lot of Citrus Berry, Azumarill. They have the Belly Drum to where if they can get that off, they're going to go +6 and start sweeping with Aqua Jet. Either way, if they can't get off the Belly Drum, doing a ton of damage too, just with the huge power boosted liquidations and play roughs, gives you a lot of good offensive coverage. I've been pretty much running this just max hit point with just a little bit of speed investment. If Choice Band was in the game, I would consider running like max speed, but very, very threatening Pokemon overall, and just having that really powerful water type priority is really, really nice. So huge threat there. And then Primarina, more of a specially defensive tank Pokemon, but has got a massive special attack stat, really, really good coverage, and can just be really bulky and difficult to deal with too, with a really good defensive typing. I personally like the Torrent on it too, because if you are starting to get chipped down a little bit, now your Sparkling Aureas are going to do more damage. Now, if you need to use Aqua Jet too to just pick off a Pokemon, that's going to be damage boosted as well. So very, very threatening Pokemon overall. Again, if you have Meowscarada on your team, very, very good way to deal with this guy. So the Focus Sash can be really nice into something like an Azumarill, to where even if they have Belly Drum set up, and you've already taken, well, here's the thing, you're already going to survive an Aqua Jet at full health, but that just kind of gives you that contingency too if you need it. And then Flower Trick obviously is going to be able to pick off both these Pokemon in one hit very, very easily. The other thing is the Rotom Wash here is another really good just option against the metagame in general. Very, very few weaknesses. There's not a lot of grass type running around, and so you don't have much to contend with in terms of your weaknesses. And then you have this really, really powerful electric type attacks, so it's good into those water type attackers. You're fairly bulky too. You can do something like drop a Will-O-Wisp down on the Azumarill too if you're dealing with that physical threat. But Rotom Wash is also very good into a lot of other key metagame threats like the Corviknight, like Hippowdon, a lot of other Pokemon that we're seeing. So that's why I have Rotom Wash here as just a good example to consider running. And then just a few more Pokemon I want to talk about that I've been seeing a lot in the metagame here. Yet again, another Steel-type Pokemon here. We have Kingambit in the game, and thankfully it cannot terrestrialize away its fighting weakness. But you're so naturally bulky too, 100 on the hit point, 120 on the defense, and then a respectable 85 on the special defense, that something like a Choppleberry or Shukaberry is going to allow you to take those super effective hits very, very well. This thing can Sword Stance, and then especially if it's running the Supreme Overlord ability, you're like the strongest Sucker Punch in the game pretty much right now. And you can just kind of sweep from there. I have Brick Break just as a way to be able to deal with other Kingambits, but there's a lot of different moves that this Pokemon can run. It has Guillotine to be able to deal with something like a Corviknight or a Toxapex. It has Metal Burst too, if you're trying to eat a really powerful move. With that, like the Choppleberry Metal Burst is a super good combination because you're slow, you take a hit, revenge damage, and now you can pressure with something like a Sucker Punch too. And so just huge threat overall. I would recommend running the Corviknight still on it. Like I said, it does have the Guillotine, so you have to be really careful with that. But the Corviknight, just be able to Iron Defense and set up against the Kingambit, and then Body Press is really, really nice as well. If you wanted to run something with like a substitute too, if you're really worried about the Guillotine, that's one that could be a good option as well. But you really want to run substitute on Corviknight, you'd have to find a different answer to deal with that. But just some good options there to be able to consider. Toxapex, we had already talked about multiple times about how good of a Pokemon it is, but it can be a really annoying Pokemon to deal with. So obviously any kind of anti-stall is going to be nice here. If you have Taunt, for example, Encore, those are going to be good things to deal with the Toxapex. But if it can switch out, then it's still going to be hard to deal with. I really like the idea of a Spathra. Again, one of the best sweepers in the game right now. You can do Sword Power or Lumina Crash. Both are great options. The nice thing is Spathra is such a good substitute user. You come in, substitute, so they can't toxic you. Infestation's not going to be able to trap you the same way. And now you can just start snowballing away with those speed boosts. You can Lumina Crash just for the direct damage. You can always Baton Pass that out. You can Calm Mind, Sword Power if you want to go that route. A lot of really good options there, but Toxapex is just such a big threat that having something to be able to deal with it is really handy. Also, something like the Espeon could be a really good option as well to be able to bounce back any of those status effects and then be able to get set up to and handle it that way. Scizor is another Pokemon that is a massive threat right now. I don't see a lot of people running it, but I don't really understand why, because there are some good fairy types in the game, and just having that Technician boosted Bullet Punch is so good. It's just so naturally physically bulky into a lot of the Mega Evolutions, things like Mega Lopunny, that I don't know why people aren't running it. And again, Okaberry too can be a really nice way to deal with those fire type threats here. There are some really good ways to deal with Scizor. Really, you just want any kind of fire type coverage. If you at least have one fire type move on your team, you have a decent way to deal with this, since it can't terrestrialize away that weakness. as of right now, again, the Okaberry, you have to respect it, but a really, really powerful special attacker. I have Skeledirge here as an example, but there are so many more examples of the game. I've been running Chandelure a lot lately, Mega Delphox, so many options. Just having some sort of fire type coverage is really, really important to be able to deal with the Scizor. Volcarona is a Pokemon that I have not really been seeing people run, but I wanted to include as an honorable mention as well, because it is one of the best Pokemon in the game. There's no denying that. Quiver Dance is one of the absolute best setup moves, and just having that combination of 135 special attack, 105 special defense, 100 on the speed, and then also the ability to go for fiery dances and boost your special attack even further is absolutely insane. Now, it is very vulnerable to, there's no heavy duty boots in the game, there's no terrestrialization, so it is going to be taking a lot of damage from things like Stealth Rocks. Even still, I think you have to respect Volcarona for how powerful it really is. Volcarona can potentially run Substitute too if you wanted to be obnoxious and go that route. I like the Focus Sash on it, and you can get Swarm boosted Bug Buzzes as well too, just to get some extra damage there. You can run this guy max hit points, max defense with Flame Body, and then just try to set up on a physical attacker, potentially get a Flame Body burn, and then just snowball from the game. But just an absolute huge threat. You should have something to be able to deal with the Volcarona. Again, having something like the Stealth Rocks is going to be really nice too, to be able to deal with that, and things like Dragonite, which are both big threats in the game. I have Toxapex here as a good example, to where you can Toxic and put a timer on the Volcarona, even if it is healing, which Volcarona does have the Morning Sun, I believe. Yeah, Morning Sun to heal. So that can be really nice. You also have Haze too. You can trap with Infestation. So the cool thing, I would recommend if you're running like a Toxapex like this, Infestation, trap them. Then, now that they can't leave the game, I would drop a Toxic, and then you can kind of Haze to stall so they can't snowball and do damage to you, and just play as needed there. And then the other big threat I wanted to talk about too, a couple more here. The Gyarados. Gyarados is one of the best Dragon Dancers in the game, and it's super threatening. With that Intimidate, it might run in a Walk and Berry too, since it is pretty naturally specially defensive, just to be able to survive a hit from an electric type attacker. You have to respect it for what it is. You probably want some sort of electric type coverage on your team too, if possible. I know it's a lot of different coverage types to consider, but it's so good against things like the Corviknight already, some of those strong water type attackers like the Primarina and the Azumarill. And then Gyarados is another one of those Pokemon too that can just get going and be so threatening. Now, the tricky thing with Gyarados is Mega Gyarados is probably one of the best Megas in the game right now, and I think it's one that not nearly enough people are running. I think once people catch on to how good Mega Gyarados is, especially in the current metagame, it's going to just start to take off and be really hard to deal with. And once it Mega Evolves, it doesn't have to deal quite so much with the electric damage. I have Alola Ninetales as an example here, just because you have access to the Freeze Dry. So Alola Ninetales is kind of nice. You can Aurora Veil, you have that nice physical bulk, and then you can just chip away with that super effective Freeze Dries here. It's 4 times super effective on the Gyarados, and then if they do Mega Evolve, you're hitting with super effective Moonblasts as well for their Dark type coverage. So I really, really like Alola Ninetales as a way to deal with Gyarados, and then it's also good against a lot of the other Pokemon that we have talked about today as well here. Just a few more Pokemon. The Espathra, again, such a really aggressive setup sweeper. It just gets going with the speed boost. It can baton pass that out potentially. It's got access to both Lumina Crash and Stored Power, so it has different routes to be a sweeper, regardless of how you want to run this guy. But the thing is, it can't terrestrialize right now, which is really nice, and it is pretty much locked into that coverage. Something like a King Gambit has a really good matchup to where you're just going to have that immunity to the Lumina Crash and the Stored Power. And so the damage boost that it's going to be able to get from something like a Dazzling Gleam is not going to be doing a ton to you. The problem is, even something like a King Gambit, if a baton passes that out to a Pokemon that now is threatening to you, that's going to be really hard to deal with. If that baton passes out to like a Delphox, for example, or any kind of mega special attacking threat, that can be really, really threatening for us as well. So, but King Gambit positioned very, very well into the Espathra if you need something to be able to have a direct answer to it. Sylveon's also another really good Pokemon. We're kind of limited right now in good special defense tanks, and the pure fairy typing is just really good defensively. So having something to be able to deal with this guy is really important. it just does so many things to the powerful hyper voice to be able to bypass those substitutes that we're seeing a lot of right now. It's got Calm Mind to set up. Mystical Fire is really nice coverage move. It can help damage Corviknights if you run some speed creep in there. Quick Attack for some priority coverage. Really annoying Pokemon to deal with. I have Aegislash here just as an example. Any kind of physically attacking Steel type Pokemon is going to be a good option, or that poison coverage too if you can find a way to add it to your team. But something like a Scizor could be a really good option as well. So just really respecting Sylveon for what it does and how powerful it really is. I think people don't realize just how bulky Sylveon is. With 95 hit points, even just at max hit points, it can take some pretty powerful physical moves too. So you really want a good way to be able to answer that. And then the last Pokemon I want to talk about here is Basculegion, just because it is such a powerful Pokemon. So we're seeing a lot of Swift Swim Basculegion on rain teams, and then also Choice Scarf Basculegion, or a combination of the two. And the reason why Basculegion is so powerful is even in 3v3, if both of its other Pokemon are knocked out, now it gets a base 150 power last respects. This move does more, like 50 base damage, more damage for every Pokemon that's been knocked out on your team. So the idea is it can come in, flip turn, go back in, and then they take out your other Pokemon. Potentially you've got some chip damage too. They may have already set up Stealth Rocks too, but they'll be able to break through the Focus Ashes and Sturdies, and then they just come in and sweep you with Last Respects for a ton of damage. It also is super threatening under the rain with that massive 112 attack stat. The rain boosted Wave Crashes are going to be doing a ton of damage because you have a really nice high hit point stat. You're not going to be taking a ton of recoil too. It's just kind of diminishing returns on that. So really, really powerful Pokemon overall there, and it's good to have a answer to be able to deal with this. And you guessed it, I'm just going to mention Toxapex here. I think Toxapex is positioned so well defensively into a lot of the big offensive threats in the game, both typing-wise and just it has one of the best stat spreads in the game, to where you can swap in with the Toxapex, not have to even worry about those last respects. You resist the Wave Crash, so you're really not going to have to be too threatened by someone like the Basculegion. You can drop down to Toxic and just kind of take away the game from there. So there are definitely other answers, but just to kind of simplify things and give you a few good options to be able to deal with these threats, wanted to talk about these Pokemon here, wanted to give my thoughts on the current metagame. Overall, it feels like a pretty balanced, pretty healthy metagame. It's a lot more hyper offense than I would prefer. I'm a more defensive player in general, if you can't tell by some of the examples that I put in this video, but I'm really excited to see how things shape up. It's been really fun to not have to deal with anything but Mega Evolution. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing some more Pokemon Champions videos, but I really hope this helped you guys navigate through the very difficult metagame, and I will see you guys in the next Pokemon Champions video.